You know, we can say the same thing over and over, and finally, at one little moment, people grasp it. They understand it. So I can tell you night after night that all things exist in the human imagination. And I can tell you that man is all imagination, and God is man, and exists in us and we in him. That the eternal body of man is the imagination, and that is God himself. That is the divine body we call Jesus Christ in Scripture. And because of previous training, we may question that or hesitate to, well, take it seriously. Tonight I hope I can show you through stories how true this is. You may never really lose yourself to the extent that I wish you would, but nevertheless, I'll tell you. Last Saturday, a friend of mine in from New York, she came in during the week and she was here on Friday. And I invited her to dinner on Saturday with a few other friends of hers out here. She called during the day and asked if she could come early. Could she come at 4 instead of 5 when I invited them? That she had things to tell me, and they would not understand it, and she would feel ill at ease in the presence of others in discussing these things. Now let me go back a little while with this lady. I met her here in this city 20-odd years ago. She was a beautiful young woman, about 30, a model. She had bought a little home for her parents and she was paying off the mortgage. And she said to me then, this is now 20-odd years ago, I've always dreamed of going to Paris. And I really don't have the money. I have enough in the bank to go tourist and live for just 1 week in a modest way. Go to some small little hotel or maybe some little rooming place. And only for a week. I couldn't afford beyond that. And even that seems stupid now, when I think that I'm still paying off on the house. I said, you're asking the wrong person for advice, because I'm not a rational person when it comes to the world. To me, I do not go along with the reasoning mind. I am talking of an entirely different principle. I am speaking of imagination, and imagination to me is Jesus Christ. And Jesus Christ to me is God. And there is nothing but God, and all things are possible to God. If you want me to give you a reason for going or not going, do not ask me. You want to go, and you have just enough for a quick one. 1 week in Paris, maximum. Go tourist and live modestly and come back. Well, she didn't tell me what she would do, but she did go. On the second day in Paris, on a blind date, she met a man, 23 years her senior. He was already married 5 times. There was no offspring, but they fell in love. He divorced his 5th, married her, and they were blessed with a child, the image of that man. When I saw pictures of him, he was born in Russia, when I saw pictures of him, it could have been pictures of his little boy. Through the years, well, the man is very wealthy. He came into a fortune. International business. Factories here in our country, factories in Paris, factories in Puerto Rico, and factories all over. A very, very wealthy man. He went wild over this offspring. Well, as the boy grew, he was then 2.5 years old, and one night I had a vision. and I saw a little boy. He was about 5 years old, handsome beyond measure. And he told me that I was his father. I said, well, if I'm your father, then when are you going to come on earth and be my son? So I am your father. Are you coming down to earth and be my son? He said, yes. I said, when? He said, on the 10th of November. I said, you are? Now this is late September. So I said to my wife the next morning, I said, darling, you know you're going to have a baby on the 10th of November. Well, she said, I really believe all that you teach, but after all, this is ridiculous. I'm not even pregnant. This is late September. I'm going to have a son on the 10th of November. She said, no, that is out. I said, all right, that's what he told me anyway. That night in New York City at my lecture, this lady appeared. Her little boy was 2.5, and she was way out in hair. She looked as though she could have it right then. So I said to her, when do you expect your son? She said, no son. I'm going to have a daughter. Joseph and I, we want a daughter. Don't want any son, we have our son. I said, but when do you expect your child then? She said, oh, the doctor said around early January. I said, should your son be born on the 10th of November, may I tell you his name? His name is Neville Mark, because that's what he told me. Well, on the 10th of November, she had her little boy, and she called him Neville Mark. Well, the family now of 4, the 2 boys, and they grew. When the first one, the image of his father, Larry, reached the age of 18, they sent him off to college in England. Pardon me. And one morning, on a Saturday morning, I got a call from her, and she said, Larry is dead. Didn't prepare me at all. Larry is dead. I said, what are you talking about? She said, I've just got a call from the headmaster of the college in London. Larry was killed today, suddenly, in this automobile accident. 1 of 5, but he was the only one killed. The others survived. He wasn't driving the car, he was in the car. And we're leaving within an hour. Joseph and Neville and myself, we're leaving in the hour to go to London. So they did, and brought back the ashes of Larry and scattered it in Central Park. She went into shock, completely shocked. And for 2 months, she wasn't here. Her husband called me long distance. He wrote me to what to do. I do not know what to do. Should I put her into some asylum? Should I bring in something? Because she is not here. She refuses to be part of this world. But you do not know this woman. She has a determination that is like steel. You can't divert her. She can take any goal in this world and realize it. And she had one goal now. She had to know about Larry. If what I'm teaching is true, that all things exist in the human imagination, then Larry existed in her imagination. And she had to see him and touch him and know him, and know that he survived. She said, my religion failed me. My philosophies failed me. I couldn't open a book. Nothing could in any way encourage me or support me. And I lived in this state, just completely in shock, to the despair of my family. And on this morning, 2 months later, I felt something surging within me, surging and surging. And then out of my own being, here comes Larry. He is seated on the side of this chair in my bedroom. It's my bedroom. He lived on the 33rd floor on Central Park South. Here is Larry. And then I said, Larry, there? Well, I can put myself there too. And she did. I sat right next to him and felt him.
the difference between feeling your desire and thinking of it. What you feel deeply is far more important than what you are thinking. You may think about doing something for a long time and never do it, but when you feel something deeply, you are spurred to act, and God acts. He, who is the cause of all life, acts through the sense of feeling. You can think of 1,000 things, yet not be moved to act upon one of them. A deep conviction felt is far more important than anything you could ever think.
I bring before my mind's eye a scene which would imply that I am the one that I want to be, or that my friend or others are as I would like them to be. I try to confine it within the framework of the golden rule, that is, doing unto others what I would love them to do unto me, and not to go outside of that rule. It's such an easy thing to practice. Would I like the good that I ask of them? Yes. Like it for myself? All right, then ask it for them. Bring them before your mind's eye and dare to assume that what you are seeing in your mind's eye is true. Now there is a definite technique to it. A simple technique. If I can share with you what I do, and it works, I bring them into my mind's eye and I work myself up into an emotional state. It's like a peculiar rhythm. I breathe in and breathe out and breathe in and breathe out, and suddenly I reach a certain point, and then one deep inhalation as though I'm setting it up in a time exposure before my own mind. I set it up and all of a sudden I have a deep inhalation and every pore of my being explodes. And then I do nothing beyond that. It's taking that scene and setting it up in a time explosion before the eternal event. And then I explode it and then let life develop it. And life develops it. And then I get the call, or I get the wire, or I get a letter confirming that which I did. And I do nothing to make it so. I simply believe implicitly in Jesus Christ, but I have found him. I have found him as my own wonderful human imagination. I believe that all things are possible to him. He has ways and means that the mortal mind knows not of. So I do not care if I do not see clearly how it could possibly be. It makes no difference to me. I simply bring it to my mind's eye what I want to see it clearly, explode it, and then let it be. Now it could be tomorrow. It could be a month. It could be even years. I am not concerned. I have done it, and that's all that matters as far as I am concerned. Everything has its own appointed hour. See the vision? That was my vision. The vision has its own appointed hour. It ripens. It will flower. If it be long, wait. It is sure, and it will not be late. A little chicken, 21 days. A man, 9 months. A horse, 12 months. A little lamb, 5 months. And there's a time interval between that impregnation and the actual embodiment of that state. And I do not know the time intervals. I only know that all I do it. And if that time interval is a day, well, it's a day. If it's going to be a month, let it be a month. I do not know the time intervals between my vision of you being the one that you want to be and you becoming that which I have assumed that you are. I do not know the time interval. But there are time intervals between the impregnation and the birth of that impregnation. But I tell you, it works. So I do not need to ask anyone or turn to anyone. Not that I am not saying to you, turn to me, if you have confidence that I can use a law that you are not yet aware of, or feel that you cannot quite master it, I invite you to turn to me. Cost you nothing. I charge not one nickel for it. To me, it's a simple technique, a simple process, and I look upon it just as this. If this hand is itching now, and the back of the hand is itching, this hand is easier for me to use to scratch it and relieve the itch than to take this and try to reach it with my fingers. I can't get back and reach it, but I can get it with this. It's the same body, so I call upon myself. If you cannot yourself, I would say, alleviate the itch may be for money, the itch may be for recognition, the itch may be for something. Well, then ask the one in whom you have confidence. If you have confidence in the speaker, all right, ask me. I tell you, I don't charge. I do not charge 1 penny, neither do I accept any money. I don't. You simply, if you feel like it, you ask me. And I will, to the best of my ability, simply feel within myself that things are as you desire them to be, providing it comes within the code of my, what I call my ethical code. That it is not at the expense of another aspect of my being. Don't ask me to hurt anyone in this world, because I could not. I will not ask anyone to be hurt. But if you want recognition in this world, you want money in this world, you want comfort in this world, I see nothing wrong in that, because these things I would want for myself. So I put them within the frame of the golden rule and ask for them. It's a simple, simple technique. So let us discuss how things are brought into being. Well, how are they brought into being? By your own wonderful imaginal acts. That's how they're brought into being. Because your imagination is God. Your imagining, that is God in action. Do you know what you would love for yourself and for your loved ones in this world? Assume that you have it. And that assumption, though at the moment, is denied by your senses, denied by reason, if you persist in it, because you believe in Him, it will harden into fact. And no power in the world can stop it. It can't stop it. But I can tell you the interval of time between your assumption and its hardening into fact. But I promise you from experience, it will harden into fact. But do it in love. May I tell you? Whenever you are in doubt, do the loving thing, and you've done the right thing. If ever in doubt, ask a very simple question. Would I like it done to me? If you can answer in the affirmative, then do it. And you cannot go wrong if you use that as your guide. Now, before we go into the silence, let me once more try to explain this simple, simple technique. You will have to practice it and use your own rhythm. You don't have to be in church to do it. You can be sitting here tonight. You can be at home listening to nice music. You can be simply relaxing with a drink. It doesn't matter what you're doing and where you are, but want to do it. Get into a lovely, quiet, relaxed frame. No so-called holy attitude. Forget that. You're holy when you're in love. God is love. So you would love it for someone else. That is all that you need. That mood. Wouldn't it be wonderful if she actually had it? If he had it? If they had it? Also, you know exactly what you want now. And then you imagine you are seeing them. You can see them in your mind's eye and see them vividly. And then breathe yourself into a rhythm. They're telling you that they have it. And you're getting yourself worked up emotionally because they're telling you that they have exactly what you know they would want in this world. And then you reach a certain point and you explode. Something actually goes out of you. It's power. You work yourself up into a certain emotional state and then suddenly you explode. And you feel everything go out. And you cannot repeat it. There's no desire to repeat it. It was an actual psychic, sexual act. But there's no physical act. There is no evidence of any physical act. But it's the same thrill that you would were it a physical act. Work yourself right up into that state, and then let it go. And do not raise one finger to make it so, any more than you would after impregnation. What can you do after pregnancy is taking place? Nothing. Leave it alone, and let it take place in its own good time. Now let us go into the silence.